Well, hello there, you beautiful creatures. Happy late Friday evening. It's been a hot minute since I have come in and provided a video. And today I'm coming in all fresh face because it's too French door hot to put anything on my face, even a layer of moisturizer. Anyway, what the fuck are you in here for, Melissa? I digress. As per usual, I decided to come in and share a little bit of my own perspective on some concepts that have been in my space over like the last 2 weeks. These are not new concepts for me. These are concepts that I've journeyed with and reflected upon for years and years, and continue to do so, but they have again popped up in my space. And I'm going to preface all of this by saying I am not a spiritual guru, and I am not a spiritual leader. I am not a healer, and I am not the spiritual police. I'm a clairvoyant medium. I go in, I provide message work, I come out, I disconnect, and I move in the body of my own spiritual lifestyle. That is my own. I make decisions based on my belief system, etc. With that said, the concepts that have been in my space have relativity to cultural appreciation, cultural appropriation, spiritual accessibility, spiritual responsibility, spiritual respect, and spiritual integrity. In my line of work, I have been exceedingly blessed to have been welcomed into many different communities and a plethora of different cultures. And in doing so, I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot about authentic history that I wasn't aware of earlier in my life. And I've learned a lot about colonization. And I've learned a lot about the oppressive systems that continue to oppress. I've learned a lot about the wound, the big, huge, fucking collaborative wound. When I say collaborative, let me quantify. We hear a lot about the collective and the collaborative. And we are part of the collective and the collaborative, right? One and the same, I guess. But here's the thing. We are human beings in human bodies having a human experience with other humans here on Mama Earth. This here is the collective that is to be our focus. The wound here is the wound that we are to be working towards healing, providing alchemy, the ones right here. And as nothing happens in isolation, that then in turn affects the energy body of the collective that is up, floating, and around us, and connecting all of us. However, we are not floating in the collective. We are right here. And it is right here in which we have been asked to walk with spiritual responsibility and spiritual integrity and spiritual respect. So relative to spiritual accessibility, when we think about the collaborative, we think about being part of this huge collective, and that spirituality in whatever modality, form, shape, should be accessible to everybody. That is a beautiful and united and hopeful utopian view. I am an optimist and I am a dreamer, but I also am aware that these light bodies need to be anchored in this physical, and our actions and our behavior represent what we do with that light here. So relative to accessibility, we also need to remember that humans have done some fucking shit to other humans and continue to do shit to other humans. And so I'm going to utilize indigenous culture, indigenous wound, indigenous spiritual ways for the purposes of this conversation and example. Let's just take a minute to do a little bit of recall and remember indigenous degradation and oppression, belittlement, and genocide. Can we take a minute to just try and imagine what it had to have been like to move every night, your whole family, from the push over and over and over again? And can we remember also that indigenous peoples, my Dakota friends, my Ojibwe friends, they were not able to legally pray in their prayer way until I was 7 years old. I was 7 fucking years old before they could pray legally. That's only 42 years ago. This wound is still fresh. It's still being perpetuated. So a little bit of other insight is their teepees are sacred. Their beadwork is sacred. Their flower patterns are sacred. Their feathers, their fans are sacred. Their ribbon skirts are sacred. Their prayer songs are sacred. Their ceremonies are sacred. and they are sacred within the context of their individual culture. They have fought to maintain what they have of their culture, of their spiritual ways, and of their language. Their language is also sacred. So I'm going to tell you this story. A few years back, I was invited to come to a ceremony as a visitor. And when I was there, I met another woman, another white woman, and she happened to be coming back to Minnesota following the ceremony to meet up with some other women to engage in some spiritual going-ons. And she had asked me to join them, and I said, yeah. It was pretty idle chit-chat for the most part in the first hour. And at one point, the woman who owned the place asked the woman who had invited me how we knew each other. And she had mentioned that we had met in ceremony through mutual friends. And this woman replied and said, oh, well, those Indians have such powerful medicine, but they're so fucked up. So I waited about maybe 15 seconds, 20 seconds to see if this other woman who had just sat in circle with me and our friends was going to speak up and say anything to this woman, and she did not. That is a bye, Felicia, for me. And so I stood up and I was leaving, but I didn't leave without expressing my why. I shared that story with a dear friend of mine who then had shared with me something that an elder and a mentor of hers had shared with her. And the elder had said, everybody wants the ways, but nobody wants anything to do with the issues. And she's not lying. I've journeyed with those words for a long time, and I will continue to probably forever journey with those words so that I can continue to perpetuate some sort of understanding about all the different ways that this looks. And one of the ways that I observed that's pretty typical is that when someone decides that they're going to be aware of the issues and they want to attend to those issues, they show up and they fly in on their white horse on a tribal land like white Jesus with their colonized ways, and they want to fix it. They want to fix it with the way that destroyed it, rather than showing up and observing, learning, asking, how can I support you in your ways, in the ways in which you wish to approach this issue, or the way that you wish to resolve this issue, or the way that you wish to perform alchemy relative to pain and generational trauma and epidemic. And so if I meander back to spiritual responsibility and spiritual integrity, and I understand what these prayerful ways mean to the people of which they come from, this is the body of who they are. Now, I was very blessed to have an element of exposure, a bit of spiritual accessibility. However, those are things that I can carry with me in my heart and in my own space. Those are not things for me to go teach. They're not my teachings to teach. Those are not my ways to commercialize. Those are not my ways to take out of cultural context. They're not my ways to refabricate. They're not my ways to sell, and they are not my ways to incur income. Something else that I've learned is that listening to someone's story and believing it is validating, and it's healing. And so considering that this earthly space is our collective, and my objective is to support as much healing as possible in this place, for me to culturally appropriate, for me to take those ways and go make money, I'm perpetuating the wound. For me, I could justify in any way I wanted that spiritual ways should be accessible to everyone. And I believe, I should say, I wish that that was true, in a way that wouldn't perpetuate further harm or further wound to other human beings here. But in my experience, and in the experience of the people I'm referring to, that would feel very violating. It would be like I was stealing. It was like I went into their homes and took. And so, when people invite me to events, retreats, classes, whatever it may be, relative to anything spiritual, and I ask questions, I am policing nobody. I'm asking questions so that I can make decisions for myself. Because it is important to me to walk responsibly with what I know, to be responsible with what I know. So I won't purchase beadwork that is manufactured. I won't visit commercialized trading posts where nothing in them is authentic and they have simply commercialized indigenous concept. They've removed it from cultural context. They've mimicked. They've created fakes to make money. Because if anybody's going to make money on any of those ways, on any of their arts, on any of their concepts, it should be them, not me. So I know I've got about maybe like 6 or 7 groups of people who are a little irritated, maybe a little pissed off with me these past couple weeks. I really have to be okay with that. I'm not policing anybody, but I am asking questions for myself. And I do hope that I've given people something to nibble on. This is my perspective. This has nothing to do with me being competitive or jealous or controlling or policing or judgmental. This is me being empowered in what I know. This is me having a very firm, passionate belief system relative to the way that this affects other humans here and the wound. So it really doesn't have to do with anybody else. And so there you have it. There's my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just the beginning. On cultural appropriation, cultural appreciation, spiritual accessibility, spiritual responsibility, respect, integrity. Even if you're mad at me, I love you a long time.